perception of this reality and being able to shift your perception is really important. Part of the ways that you do that is, for me, I had to clear up a lot of disturbances in my life, in my body, that I had held on to, maybe even unknowingly, that were shaping the way I was viewing this reality. And when you clear up disturbances, then you're more centered and you're able to perceive things from a centered place. The other important thing was to take on new information that really changes, is a totally different understanding of this reality. So through this age of information we're in, there's a lot of people who have gone on their own tangents or deep dives into history and have seen and see the patterns of our history before the 1900s. Before the 1900s, newspapers were independent. They just had small little newspapers. People wrote about what was going on. And then those were archived. And people have gone on deep dives just looking at these archives and what people were talking about in the 1800s. It's really quite interesting to see how different their experience was from what we're told from this certain perspective of our history from the 1900s on. So seeing all the different perceptions of even things like going to the moon, or things like different wars that have happened and what was going on, or assassinations, big assassinations, and what was going on versus what is told about it later. So it's like a whole, nothing changes more than the past. People forget, and then they're given a certain narrative that they stick to because that's the common narrative. But really, there was a whole other thing going on, and there's many things going on. So history is always being manipulated, and we forget. We forget what happened. We forget how things were perceived during that time. And of course, there's a nice tidy timeline we're given for our history of the United States. And well, it turns out if you start looking, there's actually a lot more going on, and it's a lot older than you think, or maybe not. But the idea of just being able to shift and go, oh, I wonder if that's true, and just be in the not knowing. You know, we think we know things because we're being told things, but it may not be what's happening. So there's a lot of illusion happening. And part of this relates to a metaphysical thing, which is that there is a thing here called the law of resonance. When you come into resonance with certain things, you take it on in your system. So when you take on and listen to information, or like, for example, dark information, when you start going down these rabbit holes of dark information, you take on some of those entities and energies. And I've seen people get really screwed up over that because of the law of resonance. So we're being given information now en masse. It goes through social media en masse. It manipulates our energy field, and we're given the projection of things based on what's happening through the information. We don't actually know what is really happening. And then we take that on and we help to create whatever it is that the big information is trying to project onto us. So we have to remember there was a time where we didn't know everything that was happening to everybody all over this plain net. We didn't know it. And we lived our lives, and we focused on our own mat, and we focused on our community more rather than the big there was a big source of information trying to control things, and it is control. And it gets into the way that we are always creating in our minds. We are creating our reality. And so if we're given information to focus on, and then we take it and project it out and talk about it or share it on social media, we are being used to spread information. And then that helps to manifest more of it. So it's it's been written about, long ago in books, and it's old philosophy that, the only way out is in. And when you know yourself, you cannot be fooled. When you develop your intuition, you cannot be fooled, because it doesn't stop. I've been on this plane net for 56 years now, and it's never stopped. It started with get under your desk during nuclear war, because that'll save you. And it just goes from there. Threats, constantly. And, these are also revealed in movies, Wizard of Oz, all these other classic movies, because that is a part of information. Long ago, we went to the movies to see the news. So it was all orchestrated. And we have to recognize what is really going on in our area, and tune into the energies. Tune into this big ocean that changes every year. And there's certain things we can count on here, and that is the path of the sun and the moon, although people are saying that they're doing weird things. But if you think they're doing weird things, then you will see them doing weird things. You see what I'm saying? It's like all being created by our mind. Our minds are so powerful. So this is part of why they don't want people to understand the mind and understand the ether. I was talking to my father, who's was a scientist, and he was like, well, science denies the ether. And I was like, first of all, that is a talking point, because why would you say science denies the ether? Science denies the ether, but does that mean it doesn't exist? No, I don't know. What did they use to test it? What was the frame of reference when they were looking for the ether and couldn't find it and had to deny it? It's in the language. Why would you deny it? So we have to recognize how we are repeating these talking points. We are the purveyors of information. We are spreading the information without really knowing. My experience is there is an ether, and it is powerful. I have a thought about somebody, and they are right next to me. If I say their name out loud, I'll run into them. It's literally so fast, and it is a technology. So we're being fed that, there isn't a tech. That's why we need a tech. There is a tech. It's an organic intelligence, and it listens to all our thoughts, all our beliefs, all our visions, and is giving them right back to us. So when you learn to shift that, you can actually have a different experience here. But it's, it's not super easy, and it really takes understanding your mind. And this is where it gets into astrology, because when you know yourself, if you have a lot of air in your chart, a lot of air sign, a lot of planets in the air signs, that is intense. And you're going to have a lot more mind activity than other people who have more of the earth or the fire. So it's all in how the angles of your chart are affecting you. So that's a whole other way to explore yourself and understand yourself. Because really, when we know ourselves, we cannot be fooled.